Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science Vault. Somewhere in the quiet hours of every night, something happens to you that no scientist on Earth can fully explain. You close your eyes. Your breathing slows. And for the next several hours, your brain enters a state so strange, so essential, and so deeply mysterious that researchers have spent more than a century trying to understand it, and still, the complete answer continues to elude them. Sleep is one of the last great mysteries of human biology. We know what it looks like from the outside. We know what happens to the body and mind when we don't get enough of it. But the deeper question, the why, remains only partially answered. Why does a creature as intelligent and adaptable as a human being need to spend hours each night in a state of near total vulnerability? Why did evolution, a process that tends to favor efficiency above almost everything else, allow such a costly, time-consuming behavior to persist across nearly every species on the planet? Entire careers have been devoted to sleep science. Entire research institutions exist for the sole purpose of studying it. And still, the core biological purpose of sleep has never been fully solved. There are theories, of course, and many of them are compelling. Some researchers believe sleep helps the brain clear away metabolic waste that quietly accumulates during waking hours. Others believe it strengthens memory, sorting through the day's experiences and deciding what gets stored and what gets released. Still others point to cellular repair, immune regulation, or emotional processing, the brain working through feelings it didn't have time to process while you were awake. But here is the honest truth. No single theory fully captures it. Sleep seems to be doing many things at once, layered quietly on top of one another, and perhaps that very complexity is exactly why it has resisted easy explanation for so long. Let's sit with that for a moment. Despite everything we have learned about the human body, despite mapping the genome, despite understanding how the heart pumps and how a single neuron fires, the basic question of why we sleep remains, in many real ways, still open. And yet, this unexplained process consumes an enormous portion of your life. If you live to the age of 75, you will spend roughly 25 years of that life asleep. 25 years. That is nearly a third of your entire existence, spent in a state where your conscious mind quietly switches off, your muscles loosen and relax, and your body performs maintenance work in the dark that you will never consciously witness. And within those 25 years of sleep, something even stranger unfolds. You will spend close to 6 years of your life dreaming. 6 years, lived entirely within the private theater of your own mind. 6 years of imagined places, impossible physics, fragmented memories, and emotions that feel every bit as real as anything from waking life, even though none of it physically happened, and no one else will ever see it. Think about that the next time a dream lingers with you after waking. You weren't simply imagining something random and forgettable. You were participating in an experience that, added up across a lifetime, takes up years, an entire hidden existence, layered quietly underneath your waking one, running in parallel for as long as you live. And here is something that makes human sleep even more unusual. Of all the mammals on this planet, humans are the only ones known to deliberately delay sleep. Every other mammal, when tired, simply sleeps. A cat does not stay up late out of curiosity. A dog does not push through exhaustion to finish one more task. Even our closest primate relatives, when fatigue sets in, generally surrender to it without much resistance. But humans, we push back. We stay up late to finish a project, to watch one more episode, to talk a little longer with someone we care about, to scroll a little further into the quiet hours of the night. We override one of biology's most fundamental, ancient signals, again and again, often without even realizing how unusual that choice really is. No other species does this so consistently, or so willingly. It is a uniquely human trait, and, in many ways, a uniquely human problem as well. So if delaying sleep is something only humans choose to do, what exactly are we delaying? What invisible system are we pushing against, night after night? The answer lies in two separate biological processes, working together quietly in the background of your body, every single day of your life. The first is your circadian rhythm. This is your body's internal clock, a roughly 24-hour cycle that governs not only when you feel sleepy, but also your body temperature, hormone release, digestion, and even your mood. It is shaped heavily by light. When your eyes detect daylight, your circadian rhythm signals your body to stay alert and engaged. When darkness falls, it slowly begins preparing your body for rest, hours before you may even notice the change. This internal clock runs largely on its own schedule, almost like a conductor quietly guiding an orchestra you can never consciously hear, but whose rhythm shapes nearly every hour of your day. The second process is something called sleep-wake homeostasis, and you can think of this almost like a kind of pressure system, slowly building inside you. The longer you remain awake, the more sleep pressure accumulates within your body. This is not just a feeling or a metaphor. There are real chemical changes occurring in the brain, building gradually the longer you stay conscious. The most well-known of these is a molecule called adenosine, which steadily increases throughout the day, creating a growing pull toward rest that becomes harder and harder to ignore. So you have two systems running at once. Your circadian rhythm, tied to the rotation of the earth and the rhythm of light and darkness, and your sleep-wake homeostasis, tied purely to how long you have personally been awake. When these two systems align, you feel naturally, comfortably sleepy at the appropriate time. When they fall out of sync, through jet lag, shift work, or simply staying up far later than usual, you feel that strange, disoriented exhaustion that doesn't quite seem to match the time shown on the clock. These two systems also explain something many people have noticed in their own lives but never quite understood: certain times of day when tiredness seems to hit with unusual intensity. For most people, there are two major dips in alertness across a 24-hour period. One arrives around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The other arrives around 2 o'clock in the morning. That early afternoon slump is not only caused by a heavy lunch, although a large meal can make it feel even stronger. It is a natural dip already built into your circadian rhythm, a brief biological lull that many cultures have instinctively responded to through the long-standing tradition of an afternoon rest. And the 2 a.m. dip is one most people never consciously experience, simply because by that hour, most of us are already deeply asleep. But if you have ever pulled an all-nighter, or found yourself wide awake in the middle of the night for any reason, you may have felt it directly, a heavy wave settling over your thoughts, your body quietly, persistently asking you to lie down and stop fighting it. This brings us to perhaps the most vulnerable window of the entire day, the period between 3 and 5 in the morning. During these early hours, your core body temperature drops to its lowest point. Your circadian rhythm is pulling you as deeply toward rest as it ever will. And if you have been awake through the night, your sleep pressure is at its absolute peak. This is the window where fatigue runs deepest, where reaction times slow, focus fades, and the pull toward unconsciousness becomes almost impossible to resist through willpower alone. It is no coincidence that many serious accidents, errors, and lapses in attention, across industries from transportation to medicine to emergency response, disproportionately occur during these very early morning hours. At this time, the body is fighting against one of its strongest, oldest biological instincts, the instinct to surrender, fully, to sleep. And underlying all of this, quietly orchestrating the slow transition from wakefulness into rest, is a single, gentle hormone: melatonin. As darkness falls, and light stops reaching the light-sensitive cells inside your eyes, your brain begins releasing melatonin into your bloodstream. It doesn't force you into unconsciousness. It doesn't work like a sedative, switching things off all at once. Instead, it sends a quiet signal throughout your entire body: nighttime has arrived. It is time to begin preparing for rest. Melatonin levels rise gradually through the evening, reach their peak in the depths of the night, and then slowly fall again as morning approaches and light begins to return. It is, in many ways, the body's own quiet messenger, translating the simple fact of darkness outside into a biological invitation to rest within. So this is where we find ourselves. A species that, more than any other on Earth, has learned to resist its own tiredness, governed nonetheless by two invisible internal systems, shaped by light, darkness, and the steady rotation of the planet itself, drifting, every single day, between two quiet, predictable moments of vulnerability, and ultimately, beneath all the noise and busyness of modern life, still answering to a single ancient hormone, whispering that it might finally be time to rest. We still do not fully know why sleep evolved, why it became so essential that nearly every complex form of life on this planet depends on it to survive. But maybe that unanswered question is part of what makes it so quietly fascinating. Some of the most fundamental parts of being alive remain, even now, beautifully, unexplained. There is a particular moment each night that almost no one remembers experiencing, the exact instant when wakefulness quietly gives way to sleep. We talk about falling asleep, and the word fits surprisingly well. It suggests a release, a soft surrender into something we don't consciously control. And in many ways, that's exactly what is happening inside your body and brain, even though from the outside it looks like nothing more than closing your eyes and drifting off. For most people, this transition takes about 7 minutes on average. 7 minutes between lying down, settling into stillness, and crossing the invisible boundary into actual sleep. But that average hides a fairly wide range of natural variation. Sleep researchers generally consider somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes to be the healthiest, most natural pace for falling asleep. It might surprise you to learn that taking a little while to drift off, feeling your thoughts loosen gradually, drifting in and out of awareness for a few minutes before sleep finally arrives, is actually a sign that your sleep system is working exactly as it should. That feels almost backwards in a culture that prizes speed and efficiency in nearly everything. We tend to assume that faster is better, that someone who falls asleep the instant their head touches the pillow must have excellent sleep health. But sleep science tells a different story. If you consistently fall asleep in under 5 minutes, it can actually be a sign of something else entirely, not excellent sleep, but significant sleep deprivation. When the body has been running on too little rest for too long, sleep pressure builds to such an overwhelming degree that it collapses you into unconsciousness almost immediately, skipping right over the gradual, gentle transition that's supposed to ease you into rest. So falling asleep instantly isn't always something to admire. Sometimes, it's simply your body telling you, quietly but clearly, that it has been asking for rest far longer than you've been willing to give it. And here is something that surprises many people the first time they hear it: you cannot consciously force yourself to fall asleep. No amount of willpower, focus, or determination can flip that switch directly. Sleep onset is governed by deep, automatic processes in the brain, processes that operate entirely outside conscious control. You can create the right conditions for it. You can lie down, dim the lights, slow your breathing, quiet your thoughts. But the actual crossing into sleep happens on its own terms, in its own time, almost like trying to drift rather than trying to push. This is part of why trying too hard to sleep so often backfires. The harder you concentrate on falling asleep, the more alert and engaged your conscious mind becomes, working directly against the very process you're attempting to trigger. Sleep behaves a little like calm itself in that way. It tends to arrive more easily the moment you stop reaching for it. So what actually happens, physically, once that letting go finally begins? It starts remarkably fast. Within the very first minute of sleep onset, your heart rate begins to slow. Your breathing follows soon after, becoming slower and more even than it was just moments earlier while you were still lying there awake. These changes are far too subtle for you to notice in the moment. But if someone were monitoring your body at that exact instant, they would see clear, measurable evidence that your nervous system has already begun shifting into an entirely different mode of operating. At the same time, your body temperature begins to drop. This isn't incidental to falling asleep, it's actually part of what makes falling asleep possible in the first place. Your core temperature needs to decrease in order for sleep onset to unfold smoothly, which is part of why a cool, slightly chilly room tends to invite sleep more easily than a warm one. It's also why your hands and feet sometimes feel noticeably warm right before you drift off. Blood vessels near the surface of your skin widen slightly, releasing heat from your core and allowing your internal temperature to fall, almost like your body opening a small window to let the warmth escape. Meanwhile, inside your skull, something quietly remarkable is unfolding as well. Your brain activity itself is shifting. While you're awake and alert, your brain produces fast, irregular patterns of electrical activity, supporting focus, awareness, and engagement with everything around you. But as sleep onset begins, those patterns start to change. The fast waves of active wakefulness slow down, giving way to entirely different rhythms that mark the beginning of a completely different state of consciousness. This first transition, the bridge between being fully awake and being fully asleep, is known to scientists as stage 1 of sleep. Stage 1 is brief. It typically lasts only a handful of minutes. But it plays an essential role as the gateway between two very different worlds. During this stage, your brain produces a distinctive mix of two particular types of brain waves. The first are called alpha waves, slower, more relaxed patterns associated with that pleasant, drowsy calm you feel just before drifting off, when your eyes might already be closed but your mind is still loosely aware of your surroundings. The second are called theta waves, which emerge as consciousness drifts further from clear wakefulness, often accompanied by strange, fragmented thoughts or fleeting images that don't follow any logical structure at all. This is often the stage where people experience what's sometimes called hypnagogic imagery, brief, dreamlike flashes that aren't quite dreams, and aren't quite ordinary thoughts either. A sudden sensation of falling. A faint twitch through the legs or arms. A strange, vivid picture appearing and vanishing almost as soon as it arrives. These fleeting moments, sometimes called hypnic jerks, are simply the natural byproduct of a brain caught between two states, not fully awake, and not yet fully asleep, sending mismatched signals as it negotiates the handover between them. And despite everything shifting internally, your heart rate slowing, your temperature dropping, your brain waves transforming into something unfamiliar, there is one part of you that hasn't quite let go yet. Your muscles. During stage 1, muscle tone remains relatively high compared to the deeper stages of sleep still to come. Your body hasn't yet released into the loose, heavy stillness associated with true rest. This is actually why people are so easily pulled out of this stage. A small sound. A slight shift in position. Someone gently saying your name from across the room. Any of these can draw you back from stage 1 quite easily, simply because your body and brain haven't yet fully committed to the descent. It's almost as if stage 1 exists as a kind of threshold, a doorway your body and brain pass through gradually, testing the transition before fully stepping across it. Heart rate slows first. Temperature begins to fall. Brain waves shift into unfamiliar new rhythms. And only then, gradually, does the rest of the body begin to follow, muscle by muscle, breath by breath, easing further and further away from the alert, engaged state of being awake. It is a remarkably intricate sequence, considering how ordinary and unremarkable it feels from the inside. Most nights, you move through this entire process without any awareness that it's happening at all. One moment you are lying in the dark, vaguely aware of your thoughts drifting somewhere just out of reach. And then, almost without noticing the exact instant it occurs, you are gone, carried quietly across that invisible threshold and into the deeper stages of sleep waiting just beyond it. It happens every single night, to nearly every person on Earth. And yet there is something quietly remarkable in recognizing just how much is taking place in those first few unconscious minutes, a slow, careful withdrawal from the waking world, happening so gently and so completely that you sleep right through the moment of your own transformation. Before sleep settles fully into its rhythm, there's a brief and fascinating threshold that many people cross every single night without ever realizing what is actually happening inside them. We touched on it briefly already, those strange little jolts and flickers that sometimes appear in the earliest moments of drifting off. But this doorway between waking and sleeping holds a few more secrets worth lingering on before we step through it completely. That sudden twitch you sometimes feel just as you're drifting off, the one that can jerk you wide awake for a split second, has a name. It's called a hypnic jerk, and it is remarkably common. Researchers estimate that roughly 70% of people experience these sudden muscle contractions at some point in their lives. For some, it happens occasionally. For others, it's a near-nightly companion to falling asleep, a small electrical flicker that arrives just as the body begins letting go. The exact cause is still debated, but one leading theory feels almost poetic in its simplicity. As your brain shifts from wakefulness into sleep, it sometimes misreads the gradual relaxation of your muscles, the natural loosening that comes with drifting off, as a sign that you are physically falling. In response, ancient survival circuitry fires a quick, protective signal, a brief contraction meant to catch you, to brace against a fall that was never actually happening. It's a strange little echo of a much older world, one where falling asleep in the wrong place, at the wrong moment, could mean real danger. Your nervous system, in a sense, still carries that old caution with it, even now, even in the safety of a quiet bedroom. There's another, far rarer phenomenon that can occur during this same fragile window, and it is one of the most striking names in all of sleep science: exploding head syndrome. Despite the alarming title, there is nothing dangerous about it at all. It involves a brief, vivid perception of a loud noise, sometimes described as a crash, a bang, or even something like a gunshot, occurring entirely inside the head, just as a person is drifting off to sleep. There's no actual sound. Nothing physically happens. It's simply the brain, in that strange in-between state, briefly misfiring as it powers down certain sensory pathways, producing a burst of perceived sound where there is none at all. For the small number of people who experience it, it can certainly be startling the first time it happens. But sleep researchers consider it a harmless quirk of the transitioning brain, nothing more than a strange little spark thrown off as consciousness flickers between two very different states. Knowing what it is tends to take away most of its power. It's simply the mind, caught for a fraction of a second between worlds, producing a brief and ultimately meaningless burst of static. And then there's a third experience, one that tends to leave a much deeper impression when it happens: sleep paralysis. This occurs when a person becomes consciously aware while the body is still locked in the muscle stillness associated with deep sleep transitions, unable to move, sometimes unable to speak, even though the mind feels fully awake. It can happen as someone is drifting off to sleep, or, more commonly, as they are waking up from it. For a few unsettling moments, the body simply hasn't caught up to the mind. It happens because the systems responsible for waking the brain and the systems responsible for releasing the body's muscles aren't always perfectly synchronized. Normally, they rise and fall together, seamlessly, without you ever noticing the handoff. But occasionally, consciousness returns a little early, arriving before the body's natural paralysis, the same paralysis that quietly protects you from acting out your dreams, has had the chance to fully lift. Though it can feel deeply unsettling in the moment, sleep paralysis is generally understood to be harmless and surprisingly common. Studies suggest that a meaningful percentage of people will experience it at least once in their lives. It's simply one more example of just how intricate this transition really is. Two enormous biological systems, the conscious mind and the sleeping body, occasionally drifting slightly out of step with one another at the exact moment they're supposed to move as one. So even before sleep fully begins, there's already so much happening beneath the surface. Small electrical jolts, strange phantom sounds, brief, fleeting moments where mind and body fall out of sync. All of it quietly normal. All of it simply evidence of just how complex this nightly crossing really is. But once that threshold is finally, fully crossed, once the body settles, the mind quiets, and true sleep begins, something far more structured and deliberate starts to unfold. Sleep, it turns out, is not one single, uniform state that you simply sink into and remain inside until morning. It has architecture. It has rhythm. It moves through distinct stages, again and again, in a carefully patterned sequence that repeats itself throughout the night. At the broadest level, sleep is divided into two very different categories: non-REM sleep and REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is the quieter, more restorative half of the night. It's where the body slows down, where breathing becomes steady and even, where the deepest physical repair takes place. REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement, is something else entirely, a far more active state, where the brain becomes almost as busy as it is during waking hours, and where most of our vivid dreaming unfolds. These two states don't happen randomly. They alternate in a structured, repeating pattern called a sleep cycle, and each complete cycle lasts somewhere between 90 and 110 minutes. Across a full night, most people move through somewhere between 4 and 6 of these cycles. Each one carries you down through the stages of non-REM sleep, and then back up into a period of REM, before beginning the descent again. It's almost like a slow, rhythmic tide, rising and falling throughout the night, pulling you deeper into stillness, then lifting you back up into something closer to mental activity, over and over, until morning finally arrives. What's particularly interesting is that these cycles aren't identical to one another. Early in the night, your body tends to spend more time in the deepest stages of non-REM sleep, focusing heavily on physical restoration. But as the night progresses, the balance gradually shifts, and your REM periods grow progressively longer with each passing cycle. This is part of why dreams in the final hour or two before waking often feel more vivid, more elaborate, and easier to remember. Your brain has, by that point, spent more time in the active, dream-rich territory of REM sleep. But before any of that, before the brain ever reaches those deeper or more active stages, it must first pass through the doorway just beyond stage 1. This is stage 2. And for most people, it makes up the single largest portion of a night's sleep. If stage 1 was the threshold, a brief and fragile crossing easily disturbed by the smallest interruption, stage 2 is where sleep begins to settle in and take hold. It's still considered light sleep, meaning a person can still be woken relatively easily compared to the deeper stages still ahead. But there's a noticeable shift here, a sense of the body finally letting go a little more fully. During stage 2, your heart rate and breathing, which had already started slowing down during the earlier transition, become even more steady and regulated. The small irregularities that might still linger from wakefulness begin to smooth out, settling into a calmer, more even rhythm. It's as though the body, having tested the waters in stage 1, now begins to trust the process a little more, allowing itself to relax more completely. Body temperature continues its gradual decline as well. This isn't a separate, unrelated drop, it's a continuation of the same cooling process that began as you first drifted off, deepening further as your body commits more fully to rest. This ongoing temperature decrease plays an important role in supporting the deeper stages of sleep that lie just ahead, almost as if the body needs to reach a certain internal coolness before it can safely descend any further. And it's during stage 2 that one of the most distinctive and visually striking features of sleep architecture appears, something researchers call sleep spindles. If you were to look at a recording of brain activity during this stage, you would see short, sudden bursts of fast, rhythmic electrical activity, appearing briefly and then fading, almost like a tightly wound flicker of energy moving rapidly across the brain. These bursts typically last only a second or two, but they appear repeatedly throughout stage 2, scattered through the night like quiet little signatures of the sleeping brain at work. Sleep spindles are believed to play an important role in memory. Many researchers think they help the brain transfer certain types of information from short-term storage into longer-term memory, essentially helping to consolidate what you learned and experienced during the day, locking certain details into place while the mind rests. There's even research suggesting that people who produce more sleep spindles during the night tend to perform better on certain memory and learning tasks the following day, a small, quiet biological process, almost invisible from the outside, working steadily to help shape the architecture of your memory. There's also a protective role believed to be tied to sleep spindles. Some scientists believe they help shield the sleeping brain from being disturbed by outside noise, essentially helping you stay asleep through minor sounds or disturbances that might otherwise pull you back toward wakefulness. In a sense, these tiny flickers of activity may be doing double duty, preserving what you've learned, while also helping to guard the fragile stillness of sleep itself. So while stage 2 might be labeled, simply, as light sleep, there is nothing simple about what's actually happening during it. Heart rate steadying. Breathing settling into rhythm. Temperature continuing its slow, careful descent. And scattered throughout it all, these brief, rhythmic bursts of electrical activity, quietly working behind the scenes to protect your rest and shape what your mind will carry forward into tomorrow. It's worth pausing here to appreciate just how much structure exists within something that, from the outside, looks like nothing more than a still, motionless body lying quietly in the dark. Beneath that stillness, an entire sequence is unfolding. A threshold crossed. Small electrical quirks, harmless and strange, flickering at the edges of consciousness. And then, stage by stage, a careful, rhythmic descent, heart rate slowing, temperature dropping, brain waves transforming again and again, each stage building on the one before it, each playing its own distinct role in the hours of repair and renewal still to come. And this is still only the beginning of the journey. Stage 2 is simply the doorway into something deeper still, a descent that continues, cycle after cycle, throughout the night, carrying the body and mind through territory far stranger, and far more restorative, than anything experienced so far. For now, though, simply notice this. Somewhere, in this exact moment, countless people around the world are passing through precisely this stage. Hearts slowing. Temperatures falling. Small bursts of electrical rhythm flickering quietly across sleeping brains. An entire planet, drifting gently, night after night, through the same ancient and remarkably intricate process, one that continues, faithfully, whether we ever stop to notice it or not. Those brief, rhythmic flickers we just explored, the sleep spindles scattered through stage 2, aren't spread evenly across the whole night. They cluster heavily right where you'd expect them, in stage 2 itself, appearing more frequently there than at any other point in the sleep cycle. It's almost as though stage 2 has its own particular signature, a kind of electrical fingerprint that sets it apart from everything that comes before and after it. But stage 2, as settled and steady as it feels, is still only a waypoint. The body isn't finished descending yet. Beyond it lies a deeper, quieter territory, one where the brain's activity slows down in a way that looks almost nothing like the wakeful mind, or even the lightly sleeping one. This is stage 3, and it introduces something entirely new to the architecture of sleep: slow, rolling brain waves known as delta waves. If sleep spindles looked like brief, tightly wound bursts of energy, delta waves are their complete opposite. They are large, slow, and steady, rising and falling in long, deliberate patterns across the brain. Where wakefulness produces fast, busy, irregular activity, and stage 2 produces these short flickering spindles, delta waves move at an entirely different pace, slow, heavy, and rhythmic, like the long, even swell of a calm ocean instead of the choppy surface activity above it. This shift matters enormously, because stage 3, along with what was once classified separately as stage 4, together make up what sleep researchers call deep sleep. In modern sleep science, these two stages are often grouped together as a single category, sometimes referred to as slow-wave sleep, named directly after those large, rolling delta waves that define it. This is the deepest, most physically restorative portion of the entire night, the stage where waking someone becomes genuinely difficult, where a person pulled abruptly from this state often feels disoriented, groggy, and slow to reorient themselves to where they even are. If stage 1 was a fragile threshold, and stage 2 a settling in, deep sleep is something else entirely. It is the floor of the descent. The point where the body, having tested the waters and steadied itself, finally lets go almost completely. And here's something particularly interesting about when this deep sleep actually happens across the night. It isn't distributed evenly across all of your sleep cycles. Slow-wave sleep is heavily concentrated in the first 2 cycles of the night, typically within those first few hours after you initially fall asleep. This means your body front-loads its deepest, most restorative sleep early on, almost prioritizing it before anything else. As the night progresses and you move through your 3rd, 4th, perhaps 5th cycle, the amount of time spent in deep sleep gradually shrinks, while, as we mentioned earlier, the amount of time spent in REM sleep steadily grows instead. There's a kind of quiet logic to this arrangement. Your body seems to treat physical repair as the priority that comes first, tackling it early and decisively while sleep pressure is at its strongest. Only once that deeper, more urgent work is underway does the balance shift toward the more cognitively active business of REM sleep and dreaming. It's almost as though the body has its own internal sense of triage, addressing the most pressing physical needs before moving on to other forms of nightly maintenance. This is also part of why the first few hours of sleep tend to matter so much for how rested you feel the next day. If those early cycles are interrupted, fragmented, or cut short, you may lose a disproportionate share of your deep sleep for that entire night, even if you eventually get an otherwise normal total number of hours. The body doesn't simply make up deep sleep later in the night, in the way you might assume. Once that early window is passed, the architecture of the night has already shifted toward different priorities. So what is actually happening to your body, physically, during this deep, slow-wave portion of the night? A great deal changes, and almost all of it moves in the same general direction, toward conservation, toward stillness, toward a kind of profound internal quiet. Your metabolism, the rate at which your body burns energy to keep all its systems running, drops by roughly 15% during non-REM sleep. This isn't a small adjustment. It represents a genuine and measurable slowing of your body's overall energy expenditure, a stepping back from the constant metabolic activity that defines your waking hours. Cells still need fuel. Organs still need to function. But the pace of all of it eases, settling into something closer to idle than to active operation. At the same time, blood flow to the brain decreases as well. This might sound concerning at first, almost as if the brain were somehow being shortchanged during sleep. But it reflects something far more ordinary: reduced demand. The brain, during these deep non-REM stages, simply isn't processing the same volume of sensory information, planning, or conscious thought that it handles constantly while you're awake. With less demand for active processing, less blood flow is required to support it. It's not deprivation, it's simply the natural consequence of a brain that has, for the moment, very little active work left to do. Your breathing changes too, becoming noticeably more regular during these non-REM stages. Gone are the small fluctuations and irregularities that can creep into breathing during wakefulness, shaped by stress, movement, emotion, or simply the variable demands of being conscious and engaged with the world. In deep sleep, breathing settles into a steady, even rhythm, almost metronomic in its consistency, one breath following another in a pattern that barely wavers from moment to moment. Underlying all of these changes, woven through nearly everything happening in the body during this stage, is a fundamental shift in which part of your nervous system is in control. Your body operates under the influence of two major branches of what's known as the autonomic nervous system. One is the sympathetic nervous system, often associated with alertness, stress, and the body's classic fight or flight response. The other is the parasympathetic nervous system, associated with rest, digestion, and recovery, sometimes nicknamed, quite fittingly, the rest and digest system. During deep non-REM sleep, the parasympathetic nervous system becomes dominant, taking the lead in directing your body's internal operations. This single shift helps explain so much of what we've already described. The slower heart rate, the steadier breathing, the drop in metabolism, the gentle conservation of energy throughout. All of it reflects the parasympathetic system quietly asserting control, easing the body away from activity and firmly toward restoration. And running directly through the center of this shift is a single, remarkable structure, the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is one of the longest and most far-reaching nerves in the entire human body, extending from the brainstem down through the neck and chest, branching out to influence the heart, the lungs, and much of the digestive system along the way. It serves as one of the primary communication pathways of the parasympathetic nervous system, carrying signals that slow the heart rate, regulate breathing, and support digestion. During deep sleep, vagal activity increases noticeably, becoming more active and more influential than it typically is during ordinary wakefulness. In many ways, the vagus nerve acts almost like a quiet messenger, traveling from the brain down through the body, repeating the same gentle instruction to organ after organ: slow down, rest now, let go a little further. It's a remarkable thing to consider. Long before any conscious thought ever enters into it, your body is already organizing itself around an entirely different operating mode, every single night, governed not by intention but by ancient, automatic biological systems working in careful coordination with one another. And all of this, the falling metabolism, the steadier breathing, the dominance of the parasympathetic system, the heightened activity along the vagus nerve, exists for a reason. It is creating exactly the right internal conditions for something essential to take place. Deep sleep is sometimes described, quite vividly, as the body's repair shop, and it's a fitting description. This is the stage where physical restoration happens most intensively. With the body's usual demands quieted, energy that would otherwise be spent on movement, digestion, or active thought becomes available instead for maintenance and repair. Tissues that were stressed or damaged during the day's activity get a chance to begin healing. The immune system, too, becomes more active during these deep stages, carrying out processes related to fighting off potential illness and reinforcing the body's natural defenses. It's worth pausing to really sit with what this means. Every single night, while you remain completely unaware, your own body is quietly conducting an extraordinary maintenance operation. Muscles that worked hard during the day are repaired. Cellular damage accumulated through ordinary wear is addressed. Resources are redirected, away from movement and conscious thought, toward genuine physical renewal. This is part of why deep sleep is so closely tied to how physically recovered you feel the next day, separate even from how mentally alert or rested you feel. Athletes, in particular, often place enormous importance on protecting and prioritizing deep sleep, precisely because so much of the physical repair their training depends on takes place specifically within these slow-wave stages. It's not simply rest in some vague, general sense. It's targeted, active, biological repair, carried out with remarkable efficiency, almost entirely beneath the surface of conscious awareness. Think back, for a moment, to everything we've covered so far in this slow descent into sleep. The fragile crossing of stage 1, easily disturbed, testing the waters. The settling calm of stage 2, heart rate steadying, those quick spindles of electrical activity flickering across the resting brain. And now, this, a deeper stillness still, where metabolism slows, blood flow eases, breathing becomes almost perfectly even, and an entirely different branch of the nervous system quietly takes the wheel, redirecting the body's resources toward healing and repair. None of this happens because you decide it should. None of it requires any conscious effort or attention from you at all. It happens automatically, faithfully, every single night, the result of biological systems so deeply embedded in your physiology that you experience almost none of it directly. You simply close your eyes, and somewhere in the hours that follow, your body quietly performs one of the most sophisticated maintenance routines in the entire natural world. And this happens not occasionally, not only when you're especially tired or particularly in need of recovery, but every night, as a fundamental, non-negotiable part of what it means to be a living, breathing human being. There is something genuinely humbling in recognizing just how much unseen work goes into something as ordinary as a good night's rest. We tend to think of sleep, when we think of it at all, simply as an absence of activity, an absence of wakefulness, an absence of conscious experience. But what we're really looking at, underneath that apparent stillness, is one of the most active, intricate, and essential processes the human body ever performs. Slowed metabolism. Reduced blood flow, matched precisely to reduced demand. Breathing settling into perfect, steady rhythm. The parasympathetic nervous system rising to prominence, guided in large part by the quiet, far-reaching influence of the vagus nerve. And at the very center of it all, deep within those slow, rolling delta waves, the body's own repair shop, open for business, working steadily through the night to restore what the day has worn down. It's happening right now, in fact, for a significant portion of the world. Somewhere, in this exact moment, countless bodies are deep in this very stage, hearts beating slowly and evenly, breathing settled into its gentlest rhythm, internal systems quietly engaged in repair work that will never once enter conscious memory. An entire planet's worth of healing, unfolding silently, night after night, in the deep and patient stillness of slow-wave sleep. Inside this repair shop we've just stepped into, perhaps no single process matters more than the release of a particular chemical messenger, one with effects reaching into nearly every system the body has to offer. Growth hormone. Throughout deep sleep, your pituitary gland, a small structure nestled at the base of the brain, releases growth hormone into your bloodstream in carefully timed pulses. And it's worth noting just how precise this timing really is. This isn't something your body does evenly across the day and night, releasing a little here and a little there, whenever convenient. Human growth hormone production reaches its absolute peak specifically during deep sleep, concentrated heavily within those early slow-wave cycles we talked about earlier, the very same hours when your body has already committed most fully to physical restoration. There's something almost elegant in that timing. Your body seems to understand, at a level far below conscious awareness, that this particular hormone does its most important work precisely when everything else has already quieted down. Growth hormone doesn't simply support growth in the way many people associate it with childhood development, height, that sort of thing. In adults, it plays a much broader and more continuous role, supporting the maintenance and renewal of tissue throughout the entire body, for an entire lifetime, not only during the years of physical growth. And this leads us directly into one of deep sleep's most fundamental jobs: tissue repair. Across the day, your body accumulates all sorts of small, ordinary wear. Muscles that worked hard during exercise develop microscopic damage, tiny tears that need to be addressed before they can grow stronger. Skin cells are exposed to friction, to sunlight, to the countless small stresses of simply moving through the world. Connective tissue absorbs impact, strain, and the steady whir of gravity working against you all day long. During sleep, particularly in these deep, restorative stages, the rate of tissue repair accelerates noticeably. Resources that were busy elsewhere during waking hours, supporting movement, digestion, conscious thought, become available instead for this work of restoration. It's a little like a construction crew that can only fully access certain parts of a building once the structure has been emptied out for the night. With the day's demands cleared away, repair work can proceed more efficiently, more thoroughly, reaching areas that simply couldn't be properly addressed while the body was still occupied with the busy work of being awake. And this repair doesn't stop at the level of visible tissue. It reaches all the way down into the molecular machinery of life itself. DNA repair becomes more active during sleep as well. Every single day, the DNA inside your cells sustains small amounts of damage, caused by ordinary metabolic activity, by exposure to environmental factors, by the simple, unavoidable whir of cellular life continuing hour after hour. Left unaddressed, this kind of damage can accumulate over time, contributing to aging, and in some cases, to more serious cellular dysfunction. But your cells come equipped with their own remarkable repair systems, specialized molecular machinery dedicated entirely to identifying and correcting this kind of damage before it can spread or compound. And research suggests that sleep provides a particularly important window for this repair process to operate, supporting the ongoing maintenance of your DNA at a level so small, so fundamentally microscopic, that it's almost difficult to comprehend. And yet it happens, faithfully, every single night, deep within billions of individual cells throughout your body. Meanwhile, just above all of this cellular activity, something quietly remarkable is happening inside your skull as well. Your brain temperature falls during sleep. This might seem like a small, almost incidental detail compared to the dramatic work of tissue repair and DNA maintenance. But brain temperature is closely tied to brain metabolism, and a cooler brain generally reflects a brain operating at a slower, more economical pace, using less energy, generating less metabolic byproduct, settling into the same kind of restorative quiet that we've already seen reflected throughout the rest of the body. Some researchers believe this gentle cooling may play a supportive role in the brain's own maintenance processes that, much like the DNA repair happening throughout the rest of the body, may proceed more effectively in a slightly cooler, lower energy environment. It's almost as though the brain, too, needs to power down certain systems in order to fully dedicate its remaining resources toward genuine restoration. And alongside this drop in temperature, another vital measurement shifts downward as well: blood pressure. During healthy sleep, blood pressure drops, typically by somewhere between 10 and 20% compared to typical waking levels. This phenomenon even has its own name in sleep medicine, nocturnal dipping, and it's considered an important, healthy sign of a well-functioning cardiovascular system. Think about what this actually represents. For the entire span of your waking hours, your heart and blood vessels work continuously against the demands of gravity, movement, stress, and simple wakeful alertness, maintaining the pressure necessary to keep blood circulating efficiently throughout your body. Sleep offers a genuine reprieve from that constant labor. Blood pressure eases. The cardiovascular system, much like every other system we've discussed, settles into a gentler, lower-effort rhythm, one that allows the heart and blood vessels their own small measure of nightly rest. This dip isn't simply pleasant, it's protective. Researchers have found that people who don't experience this natural nighttime drop in blood pressure, a pattern sometimes linked to poor sleep quality or certain sleep disorders, tend to face a higher long-term risk of cardiovascular problems. The simple act of blood pressure falling at night turns out to be one small but meaningful piece of the body's much larger strategy for protecting long-term health. And this protective theme continues directly into one of sleep's most quietly powerful functions, its effect on inflammation. Sleep reduces inflammation throughout the body. Inflammation, in small, controlled amounts, serves an important and healthy purpose, helping the body respond to injury or infection. But when inflammation becomes chronic, lingering at low levels for extended periods rather than rising and falling as needed, it has been linked to a wide range of health concerns, from cardiovascular disease to metabolic disorders to general, accelerated aging throughout the body. Sufficient, high-quality sleep helps regulate this process, keeping inflammatory activity in check rather than allowing it to drift upward unchecked. It's part of why insufficient sleep has been so consistently linked, across decades of research, to elevated markers of inflammation throughout the body. Your immune system, deprived of its usual nightly recalibration, begins operating in a state of low-grade, persistent alert, even when there's no genuine threat actually present. Which brings us naturally to one of sleep's most essential roles of all, its relationship with the immune system itself. Sleep strengthens immune defenses. You may have noticed this pattern in your own life without ever fully articulating it. When illness strikes, the body's instinctive response is almost always to seek more rest, more sleep, more time spent in exactly the state we've been describing throughout this entire journey into deep, slow-wave sleep. This isn't simply coincidence, or the body seeking comfort during a difficult time. It reflects a genuine, measurable biological need. During sleep, the immune system becomes considerably more active in certain important ways, more capable of identifying threats, coordinating responses, and reinforcing the body's overall defenses against illness and infection. Research has repeatedly shown that people who sleep poorly, or insufficiently, tend to mount weaker immune responses, sometimes even showing reduced effectiveness from vaccinations, compared to those who sleep well and consistently. The immune system, it seems, relies heavily on these nightly hours to perform some of its most important coordinating work. Part of how this happens involves a particular group of small proteins called cytokines. Cytokines act almost like messengers within the immune system, signaling molecules that help coordinate the activity of different immune cells, directing them toward areas of the body that need attention, and regulating the overall intensity of immune responses. Certain cytokines are released and increased specifically during sleep, particularly during these deep, restorative stages we've been exploring. This release helps support and strengthen the immune system's ability to respond effectively to whatever challenges it might encounter, whether a minor seasonal illness or something more significant. It's a remarkably elegant system when you consider it closely. The same deep, quiet hours that support tissue repair and DNA maintenance also serve as prime time for immune coordination, almost as though the body has organized an entire overnight shift dedicated to defense and protection, running quietly in parallel with everything else we've already described. And there is one more vital process unfolding during these hours, one that connects directly to how your body manages energy on a daily ongoing basis. Sleep helps regulate insulin production. Insulin is the hormone responsible for managing blood sugar, helping cells throughout your body take in glucose from your bloodstream and use it efficiently for energy. This regulation needs to be carefully balanced. Too little insulin sensitivity, and blood sugar can rise to unhealthy levels. Too much insulin without the body responding properly to it, and a different set of metabolic problems can begin to develop over time. Sufficient sleep plays an important supporting role in keeping this entire system functioning properly. Research has shown that even short periods of sleep deprivation can measurably reduce insulin sensitivity, meaning the body becomes less efficient at managing blood sugar after just a few nights of inadequate rest. Over the long term, chronic sleep deficiency has been linked to a significantly increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes, a connection that researchers have continued to strengthen and refine across many years of careful study. So when we step back and look at everything taking place during these deep, quiet hours, something quite remarkable comes into focus. This is not simply rest, in the passive, simple sense that word usually implies. It is an extraordinarily coordinated, full-body operation. Growth hormone, released in careful, timed pulses, supporting renewal throughout the body. Tissue repair, accelerating to address the ordinary wear of waking life. DNA repair, working at the smallest possible scale to protect the basic genetic material every cell depends on. Brain temperature, gently falling, supporting the brain's own quiet maintenance work. Blood pressure, easing downward, offering the cardiovascular system its own nightly reprieve. Inflammation, kept carefully in check. The immune system, strengthened and recalibrated, supported by cytokines working as precise, coordinated messengers. And blood sugar regulation, quietly protected and preserved, night after night, through the steady support that sufficient sleep provides. All of this happens without a single conscious thought from you. You don't direct any of it. You don't consciously choose to release growth hormone, or instruct your immune system to strengthen itself, or decide that tonight might be a good night for some DNA repair. It all unfolds automatically, governed by systems so deeply embedded in your biology that they require absolutely nothing from your waking mind at all. There's something genuinely worth sitting with in this. We live in a culture that often treats sleep as a kind of optional luxury, something to be minimized, postponed, or sacrificed whenever life gets busy enough to demand it. And yet, what we've just walked through reveals something quite different. Sleep is not the absence of important activity. It is, in many ways, one of the most biologically active periods your body ever experiences, a nightly convergence of hormone release, cellular repair, immune coordination, and metabolic regulation, all working together in careful, patient coordination. Every night, while the conscious mind rests in darkness and silence, an entire hidden world of activity continues without pause. Hormones rising and falling in precise rhythm. Cells repairing themselves at scales too small to ever directly perceive. Immune messengers traveling throughout the body, reinforcing its defenses. Blood pressure easing. Inflammation settling. Blood sugar regulation quietly protected. It is, in its own way, one of the most sophisticated maintenance systems found anywhere in the natural world, and it belongs, quietly and faithfully, to every single one of us, unfolding again and again, every night, whether we ever stop to think about it or not. Building directly on that relationship between sleep and insulin, there's a closely connected piece of the picture worth exploring further: how sleep shapes the way your entire body processes and manages glucose. Sleep improves glucose metabolism. This goes beyond simply supporting insulin sensitivity, which we've already touched on. Quality sleep helps the body manage blood sugar more efficiently across the board, supporting smoother, more stable glucose levels throughout the day rather than the kind of sharp spikes and crashes that can occur when the body's metabolic systems aren't functioning at their best. Researchers have found that even healthy individuals, with no underlying metabolic conditions at all, show measurably less efficient glucose processing after just a few nights of restricted or poor quality sleep. It's a striking reminder of just how interconnected these systems really are. The same deep, restorative hours we've spent so much time exploring, the ones responsible for tissue repair, immune coordination, and hormone release, also play a direct role in something as fundamental as how efficiently your body converts food into usable energy. Metabolism isn't separate from sleep. It's deeply, intricately woven into it. And this connection extends naturally into something many people think about constantly, often without realizing how closely it relates to sleep at all: body weight. Sleep helps maintain healthy body weight. This relationship operates through several different channels, working together rather than through any single, isolated mechanism. Sleep helps regulate the hormones responsible for hunger and fullness, including one called ghrelin, which signals hunger to the brain, and another called leptin, which signals satisfaction and fullness. When sleep is insufficient, these two hormones tend to fall out of balance, ghrelin rising and leptin declining, creating a biological push toward increased hunger and reduced feelings of fullness, even when the body doesn't actually need additional calories. At the same time, insufficient sleep affects decision-making and impulse control, particularly around food choices, often making higher calorie, less nutritious options feel more appealing in the moment. And as we've already seen, poor sleep also reduces insulin sensitivity, affecting how efficiently the body processes the calories it does consume. Taken together, these effects help explain why chronic sleep deprivation has been so consistently linked, across a wide range of long-term studies, to a higher risk of weight gain over time. It's not simply about willpower or making better choices in some abstract sense. It's about an entire hormonal and metabolic system, quietly shaped night after night by how well, or how poorly, a person sleeps. So even something as seemingly unrelated as a number on a scale traces back, in part, to the quality of those dark, quiet hours we so often take for granted. By now, we've spent considerable time exploring the body during sleep, the slowing heart rate, the falling temperature, the quiet hormonal symphony unfolding beneath the surface. But there's another organ at the center of all of this, one that deserves its own closer look. And what's happening inside it might be the most surprising part of this entire journey so far. The brain. You might reasonably assume that as the body settles into its deepest rest, the brain follows along in a similar direction, slowing down, quieting, drifting into something close to inactivity. But that assumption, as intuitive as it feels, turns out to be far from accurate. The sleeping brain remains highly active. In fact, depending on the particular stage of sleep, certain types of brain activity can rival, or in some cases even exceed, the levels of activity seen during ordinary wakefulness. This single fact tends to overturn a lot of people's basic assumptions about what sleep actually is. It is not simply the brain switching off for several hours, waiting patiently for morning to arrive. It is the brain shifting into an entirely different mode of operation, one with its own distinct purpose, its own unique patterns, and its own essential work to carry out. And this activity isn't uniform across the entire brain either. Different regions behave in surprisingly different ways throughout the night. Some brain regions stay awake while others sleep. This might sound almost contradictory at first, the idea that parts of your brain could remain relatively alert even while you are, by every measure, deeply asleep. But neuroscience has revealed exactly this kind of regional variation, with different areas of the brain shifting in and out of more active or more quiet states depending on the particular stage of sleep you're currently in, and depending on what specific functions need to be carried out at that moment. Some researchers believe this regional variation may even help explain certain unusual sleep behaviors, like sleepwalking or sleep talking, situations where particular brain regions associated with movement or speech remain unusually active or accessible, even while the regions responsible for full conscious awareness stay deeply asleep. It's a striking reminder that sleep isn't a single, uniform light switch, turning the entire brain on or off all at once. It's closer to a complex, carefully managed network, with different sections operating according to their own particular rhythms. And in certain specific regions, brain activity doesn't just continue during sleep, it actually increases beyond typical waking levels. Certain brain regions consume more oxygen and glucose while asleep. This is particularly true during REM sleep, the more active stage we'll be exploring in much greater depth later in this journey. During these periods, specific areas of the brain associated with emotion, memory, and visual processing can show levels of oxygen and glucose consumption that match, or in some cases exceed, what's typically seen during focused wakeful activity. The brain, in these moments, is working hard, not resting in any simple sense at all, but actively engaged in processes every bit as demanding as anything it handles during the day. So if the sleeping brain isn't simply powering down, what exactly is all of this activity accomplishing? Part of the answer involves one of the most fascinating discoveries in recent sleep science: the realization that sleep performs an entirely different kind of essential maintenance, one that has nothing to do with muscles, or hormones, or immune cells at all. Sleep cleans the brain. This might be one of the most remarkable functions of sleep discovered in recent decades, and it centers around a specialized system that operates almost exclusively while you're asleep. The glymphatic system becomes highly active during sleep. Throughout the rest of your body, a network called the lymphatic system works continuously to clear away waste products and cellular debris, helping maintain healthy tissue throughout your organs. For a long time, scientists believed the brain had no equivalent system of its own, no dedicated waste-clearing network operating within that dense, intricate tissue. But research over the past decade or so revealed something the field had overlooked entirely: a parallel system, specific to the brain and central nervous system, now known as the glymphatic system. This system relies on the movement of cerebrospinal fluid, flowing through specialized channels that run alongside the brain's blood vessels, washing through brain tissue and carrying away accumulated waste products in the process. And here's the truly remarkable part: this system operates dramatically more efficiently during sleep than during wakefulness. The toxin-clearing system operates about 10 times harder during sleep. 10 times. That's not a small or subtle difference. It represents an enormous shift in how actively your brain clears away its own accumulated waste, depending entirely on whether you're awake or asleep. Researchers believe this dramatic increase happens partly because brain cells actually shrink slightly during sleep, widening the spaces between them just enough to allow cerebrospinal fluid to flow through more freely, washing through brain tissue far more effectively than it ever could while those same cells remain in their normal, more closely packed waking state. It's almost as though the brain needs to take a step back from its usual density, creating just enough extra space in order to properly clean itself out. And one particular substance cleared through this process has drawn enormous scientific attention in recent years. Waste proteins such as beta amyloid are removed. Beta amyloid is a protein that occurs naturally in the brain, but one that can become genuinely problematic when it accumulates in excess, clumping together to form deposits known as plaques. These plaques are strongly associated with Alzheimer's disease, one of the most devastating neurodegenerative conditions affecting people as they age. Under normal, healthy conditions, the glymphatic system helps clear away excess beta amyloid before it has the chance to accumulate to dangerous, disease-associated levels. And because this clearing process happens so much more efficiently during sleep, getting consistent, sufficient rest may play a meaningfully protective role in keeping these harmful protein deposits from building up in the first place. This connection leads directly to one of the more sobering findings within sleep research, one worth sitting with carefully and honestly. Sleep deprivation may increase Alzheimer's risk. Several studies have found troubling associations between chronic, long-term sleep deprivation and an elevated risk of developing Alzheimer's disease later in life. The proposed mechanism connects directly to everything we've just described. Less sleep means less opportunity for the glymphatic system to perform its essential cleansing work, which may mean less efficient clearance of beta amyloid over time, which may, in turn, contribute to the gradual buildup of the very protein deposits so closely associated with this disease. It's important to note that researchers are still working to fully understand the complete picture here, the precise mechanisms, the exact magnitude of the risk involved, and how this single factor interacts with the many other elements that contribute to Alzheimer's disease. But the association itself has appeared consistently enough, across enough independent studies, that it has become one of the most compelling reasons researchers give for prioritizing healthy, sufficient sleep, not just for how rested you feel tomorrow, but for the long-term health of your brain across an entire lifetime. There's something quietly profound in recognizing all of this. While you sleep, completely unaware, your brain isn't simply idling, waiting for morning. It's actively working, in some regions more than ever, clearing away the literal byproducts of a day's worth of thinking, of feeling, of simply being a conscious, functioning mind. Brain cells shrinking just slightly, creating space for fluid to wash through. Waste proteins, including ones tied to serious disease, being carried away and cleared. An elaborate, largely invisible cleaning system, working roughly 10 times harder than it does during your waking hours, every single night, while you remain entirely unaware that any of it is happening at all. We often think of sleep purely in terms of how it makes us feel the next morning, refreshed, or exhausted, depending on how well it went. But what we're discovering here points to something with a much longer timeline. This nightly cleansing process may be quietly shaping not just tomorrow, but years, even decades, into the future, protecting the long-term health and clarity of the very mind that allows you to experience any of this at all. It's a strange and humbling thought to carry forward. Somewhere, in the deep, quiet hours of tonight's sleep, your own brain will once again begin this remarkable process, shrinking its cells just slightly, opening space between them, allowing fluid to wash through and carry away whatever waste has accumulated since the last time you slept. A hidden, nightly ritual of cleansing and renewal, repeating itself faithfully, every single night, for as long as you live. Just as the brain dedicates these quiet hours to physically clearing away waste, it also uses this same protected time to perform an entirely different kind of maintenance, one focused not on cellular debris, but on the delicate wiring of thought itself. Sleep helps recalibrate sensory nerves. Throughout your waking hours, your sensory systems, your eyes, your ears, your skin, your sense of smell and taste, are bombarded constantly with information. Light, sound, touch, pressure, temperature, an endless stream of input arriving every single moment you're conscious and engaged with the world around you. Over time, this constant stimulation can leave sensory pathways somewhat fatigued, their sensitivity gradually drifting away from its optimal baseline. Sleep offers a kind of recalibration for these systems. With the usual flood of sensory input dramatically reduced, the nerves responsible for relaying that information get a genuine opportunity to reset, restoring their sensitivity and responsiveness in preparation for the next day's demands. It's part of why senses can feel oddly muted or imprecise after a poor night's sleep, and noticeably sharper and more reliable after a deep, restorative one. The instruments themselves need their own periodic tuning, and that tuning happens here, in the quiet of the night. And this recalibration extends inward as well, reaching the very connections that allow your brain to function as a coherent, thinking system in the first place. Sleep helps reset synaptic connections. Every single day, as you think, learn, experience, and interact with the world, your brain forms new connections between neurons, called synapses. This is, in essence, the physical basis of learning itself, the strengthening and forming of these tiny junctions as your brain encodes new information. But this process can't simply continue indefinitely, growing busier and busier without any kind of counterbalance. If synaptic connections only ever strengthened and multiplied, with nothing ever scaling back, the brain would eventually become saturated, overloaded with connections, many of them only marginally useful, consuming energy and physical space without adding much real value. Sleep appears to play an essential role in addressing this. During sleep, certain synaptic connections are selectively weakened or pruned, while others, generally the ones most relevant or significant, are preserved and reinforced. Researchers sometimes describe this as a kind of synaptic housekeeping, a nightly process of tidying up the brain's wiring, clearing out the unnecessary connections formed throughout an ordinary day, while protecting and strengthening the ones that genuinely matter. This brings us to something many people have felt directly in their own lives, even without understanding the underlying mechanism behind it. Sleep clears mental clutter. That heavy, foggy feeling that builds throughout a long day, the sense of a mind grown crowded, scattered, and difficult to focus, often eases noticeably after a good night's sleep. This isn't simply a matter of feeling more energetic in some general sense. It reflects this deeper process of synaptic pruning and resetting we just described, the brain quite literally clearing away some of the unnecessary clutter accumulated during waking hours, creating renewed space and clarity for the day ahead. It's a bit like a desk that gradually accumulates papers, notes, and half-finished tasks throughout a long workday, growing more disorganized hour by hour. Sleep functions almost like the process of tidying that desk overnight, clearing away what's no longer needed, organizing what remains, so that the next morning offers a cleaner, more workable space to begin again. But sleep doesn't simply clear things away indiscriminately. It also actively builds and strengthens, particularly when it comes to the experiences and information you most need to retain. Sleep strengthens long-term memories. This process, often called memory consolidation, involves taking memories formed during the day, ones that initially exist in a fragile, easily disrupted state, and gradually transferring them into a more stable, durable form of long-term storage. We touched briefly on this earlier when we discussed sleep spindles in stage 2, but the process extends well beyond that single stage alone, continuing and deepening across the different phases of sleep throughout the night. Studies consistently show that people who sleep well after learning new information, whether it's a new skill, a foreign language, or simply a set of facts to remember, tend to retain that information significantly better than those who don't get adequate rest. The brain, it seems, treats sleep almost as an essential second half of the learning process, every bit as important as the initial moment of encountering and absorbing new information in the first place. And this consolidation process doesn't only apply to factual or procedural information. It extends deeply into something far more personal, emotional experience itself. Sleep helps consolidate emotional memories. The experiences that carry genuine emotional weight, moments of joy, fear, sadness, or significance, tend to be processed and consolidated with particular intensity during sleep. This makes a great deal of sense from an evolutionary perspective. Emotionally significant events often carry important information relevant to survival or well-being, and the brain seems to prioritize preserving these particular memories with special care, weaving them more firmly into the fabric of long-term memory than more mundane, emotionally neutral experiences. This happens through a particular kind of nightly work. Emotional experiences are processed during sleep. Beyond simply consolidating these memories into long-term storage, sleep also appears to help the brain work through the emotional content attached to them. Difficult experiences from the day, moments of stress, conflict, or sadness, often get a kind of emotional reprocessing during sleep, particularly during REM sleep, which we're about to explore in much greater depth. This is part of why a difficult experience can sometimes feel less overwhelming, less sharp and immediate, after a night of good sleep, even though the actual memory of what happened remains completely intact. And this leads to a fascinating shift that occurs in one particular brain region, deeply tied to how we experience and process emotion. Amygdala activity decreases, improving emotional balance. The amygdala is a small, almond-shaped structure deep within the brain, closely associated with processing fear, threat, and emotional intensity. During REM sleep specifically, activity in the amygdala tends to decrease relative to its typical waking levels, even while the brain continues actively processing emotional memories and experiences. This combination, reduced amygdala reactivity alongside continued emotional processing, appears to allow the brain to work through difficult or emotionally charged material with somewhat less intensity than it would carry during waking hours. In a sense, sleep may offer the brain a uniquely safe environment in which to revisit and process emotionally significant experiences, doing so with the volume gently turned down, allowing genuine processing to occur without the full emotional intensity of the original experience overwhelming the system all over again. This likely explains, at least in part, why sufficient sleep is so closely linked to emotional resilience and stability. People who consistently sleep poorly often report feeling more emotionally reactive, more easily overwhelmed by minor frustrations, more prone to irritability or anxiety, even when nothing about their actual circumstances has changed. The raw emotional material is the same. What's different is whether the brain has had sufficient opportunity, during sleep, to properly process and integrate that material, smoothing its sharper edges before the next day begins. And finally, woven through all of these nightly processes, memory consolidation, synaptic resetting, emotional processing, lies a benefit with very practical implications for how you function the following day. Sleep improves learning ability the next day. This works in something of a continuous cycle. Sleep helps consolidate what you learned yesterday, strengthening and stabilizing those memories. But sleep also appears to prepare the brain for new learning ahead, in part through that synaptic pruning and resetting we described earlier, clearing away unnecessary clutter and restoring the brain's capacity to form new connections efficiently. Students who sleep well before an exam consistently outperform those who sacrifice sleep for extra last-minute studying. Professionals who protect their sleep tend to show sharper problem-solving abilities, more flexible thinking, and better overall cognitive performance than those operating on insufficient rest. It's a beautifully self-reinforcing system when you really consider it. Sleep helps the brain remember the past more effectively, while simultaneously preparing it to absorb the future more effectively as well. Each night serves a kind of dual purpose, consolidating what came before while quietly readying the mind for what comes next. So far, in this slow journey through the architecture of a single night's sleep, we've moved gradually downward, deeper and deeper, through stage 1, into stage 2, and further still into the deep, slow-wave territory of stages 3 and 4. We've seen the body's metabolism slow, its temperature fall, its immune system strengthen, its tissues repair themselves with quiet, patient precision. And we've just explored how, even amid all of this physical stillness, the brain has been busy with its own essential work, clearing mental clutter, strengthening memory, processing emotion, preparing itself for whatever the next day might require. But this entire deep, quiet descent represents only the first half of the story. After spending this time in the depths of non-REM sleep, something begins to shift. The brain, having spent considerable time in this slow, restorative state, begins transitioning towards something altogether different, a stage that looks, in many ways, almost nothing like everything we've described so far. REM sleep begins roughly 90 minutes after sleep onset. This timing lines up closely with what we discussed earlier regarding the length of a typical sleep cycle. After moving through the lighter stages, and then descending into the deepest reaches of slow-wave sleep, the brain begins to climb back upward, eventually arriving at this distinctly different stage, usually for the first time, around an hour and a half after you originally drifted off. And across an entire night, this stage occupies a meaningful portion of your total sleep. REM accounts for roughly 20 to 25% of total sleep in a typical adult. That means for every 8 hours spent asleep, somewhere between 90 minutes and 2 hours, roughly, are spent specifically within this one distinctive stage. As we mentioned earlier, this proportion isn't static throughout the night either. REM periods tend to be relatively brief during the early sleep cycles, and grow progressively longer as the night continues, which is part of why early morning REM stretches, the ones occurring just before natural waking, tend to be the longest and most memorable of the entire night. So what exactly is waiting within this next stage, this curious, active territory that occupies such a substantial portion of every night's sleep? What happens to the brain, into the body, once it crosses into REM? That is where we'll turn our attention next, into a state quite unlike anything we've explored so far, where the mind grows remarkably active, the body grows remarkably still, and the strange, vivid landscape of dreaming begins to unfold. We left off at the very edge of REM sleep, that strange and active stage waiting at the far end of every sleep cycle. Now let's step further inside it, and look closely at what makes this stage so different from everything that came before. As the night progresses, this particular stage doesn't remain constant in length. It grows. REM periods lengthen as the night progresses. The very first REM period of the night, arriving roughly 90 minutes after you first fall asleep, tends to be brief, sometimes lasting only a few minutes before the cycle shifts back down into non-REM sleep. But with each subsequent cycle, that window expands. By the final cycles of the night, often in the early morning hours just before natural waking, REM periods can stretch out considerably longer, sometimes lasting 20 minutes, 30 minutes, occasionally even longer still. This is part of why the dreams people remember most vividly tend to be the ones happening closest to waking. By that point in the night, you've simply spent more consecutive time within this active, dream-rich stage, giving the brain more opportunity to construct longer, more elaborate, more memorable dream sequences before you finally open your eyes. But length alone doesn't capture what makes REM sleep so genuinely remarkable. What's happening inside the brain during this stage is, in many ways, the most surprising twist in this entire journey through sleep. Brain activity during REM resembles wakefulness. After everything we've explored about the slow, quiet descent into deep, restorative sleep, this fact tends to catch people off guard. The brain, which spent the earlier portion of the night settling into those large, rolling delta waves of deep sleep, suddenly shifts into something else entirely, something that looks, in many measurable ways, remarkably similar to an alert, awake mind. Brain waves become highly active during REM. If you were to look at a recording of brain activity during this stage, you would see fast, irregular patterns, quite different from the slow, synchronized waves of deep sleep we explored earlier. These patterns bear a striking resemblance to the kind of brain activity recorded during focused wakefulness, busy, rapid, and complex. It's almost as though the brain, having spent considerable time in quiet stillness, suddenly switches the lights back on internally, even while the body remains completely asleep. And this shift involves more than simply faster activity. It involves a fundamental change in how the brain's neurons are communicating with one another. Neurons become desynchronized during REM. During deep, slow-wave sleep, neurons throughout the brain tend to fire in a remarkably synchronized way, large groups of cells rising and falling together in those slow, rolling delta waves we discussed earlier. But during REM sleep, this synchronization breaks apart. Neurons begin firing in a much more independent, scattered, desynchronized pattern, each region operating somewhat more on its own terms, rather than moving together in that broad, unified rhythm. This desynchronization may help explain some of the unusual qualities of dreaming itself, the way dreams often combine unrelated images, locations, and people in ways that wouldn't make logical sense while awake. With different brain regions operating somewhat independently of one another, rather than in the more unified, coordinated rhythm of deep sleep, the resulting mental experience can take on a distinctly fragmented, surreal quality, one that feels completely natural and seamless while you're inside the dream, yet often falls apart into nonsense the moment you try to describe it after waking. And this internal activity doesn't stay contained to brain waves alone. It ripples outward, affecting the body in ways that almost mirror wakefulness directly. Blood flow returns to near waking levels. Remember how, during deep non-REM sleep, blood flow to the brain decreased, reflecting the brain's reduced processing demands during that quieter stage? During REM, that pattern reverses almost completely. blood flow rises again, climbing back up toward levels similar to what's typically seen during ordinary wakefulness, supporting all of that renewed, busy neural activity we just described. Heart rate and breathing rise toward waking levels as well. The slow, steady heart rate and breathing pattern that define deep sleep gives way here to something quite different. Heart rate increases, sometimes becoming nearly as fast as it would during a period of calm wakefulness. Breathing follows a similar pattern, picking up pace from the slow, deep rhythm of non-REM sleep. But unlike the steady, almost metronomic breathing we described during deep sleep, REM breathing carries its own distinct quality. Breathing becomes irregular during REM. Rather than settling into smooth, even patterns, breathing during REM sleep can shift unpredictably, sometimes quickening, sometimes briefly slowing, mirroring the emotional intensity or activity occurring within the dream itself. If you've ever woken from a particularly intense or frightening dream and noticed your breathing felt unusually fast or uneven, this irregular REM breathing pattern is very likely part of what you experienced, your physical breath responding, in real time, to events that were happening only within the private theater of your own mind. And perhaps the most visually distinctive feature of this entire stage, the one that gave REM sleep its very name, involves something happening just beneath closed eyelids. Eyes move rapidly during REM sleep. If you were to watch someone sleeping during this stage, you would notice their closed eyes darting back and forth, quickly and somewhat erratically, beneath their eyelids. This is, in fact, exactly where the name REM comes from, rapid eye movement, and it remains one of the most reliable external signs that a person has entered this particular stage of sleep. These movements aren't random twitching, disconnected from anything happening internally. Researchers have found compelling evidence suggesting a much more direct connection. Eye movements may reflect dream imagery. Some studies suggest that the direction and pattern of these rapid eye movements may correspond, at least to some degree, with what's actually happening within the dream itself, almost as though the sleeping person's eyes are tracking movement and imagery unfolding inside an entirely internal, invisible landscape. It's a remarkable thought to sit with for a moment. Somewhere inside that stillness, behind closed eyes that occasionally flicker and dart with purpose, an entire visual world is unfolding, one with its own sense of motion and space, even though none of it exists anywhere outside the dreamer's own mind. So if the eyes are moving, and the brain is firing in patterns that resemble wakefulness, and the heart is beating faster, and breathing has grown quick and irregular, what about the rest of the body? With so much internal activity occurring, you might reasonably expect the body itself to be moving as well, perhaps even acting out whatever is unfolding within the dream. And this is where REM sleep reveals perhaps its most protective, most essential feature of all. Most voluntary muscles become paralyzed during REM. While the brain races along in patterns nearly indistinguishable from wakefulness, the body, by contrast, becomes almost completely still. The muscles responsible for voluntary movement, your arms, your legs, your torso, essentially shut down, entering a state of temporary paralysis for the entire duration of the REM period. Only a small handful of muscles remain unaffected, including those controlling the eyes, which is precisely why those rapid eye movements remain visible even while everything else lies motionless, and the muscles responsible for breathing, which obviously must continue functioning throughout. This temporary paralysis exists for an enormously important reason. With the brain actively generating such vivid, immersive dream experiences, often involving running, fighting, falling, or any number of physically dramatic scenarios, the body needs some kind of safeguard preventing it from actually attempting to carry out those same movements in real, physical space. This protective paralysis provides exactly that safeguard, essentially disconnecting the brain's movement commands from the muscles that would otherwise carry them out, keeping the dreamer safe and motionless throughout even the most physically dramatic dream sequences. It's worth pausing here to really absorb the strangeness and the elegance of what's actually happening during this stage. The brain, racing with activity nearly identical to wakefulness. The heart, beating quickly. Breathing, irregular and unpredictable. Eyes, darting rapidly beneath closed lids, perhaps tracing the very contours of an invisible dream world. And yet, through all of this internal storm of activity, the body itself remains almost entirely still, protected by its own temporary paralysis, safely separated from whatever drama might be unfolding within the sleeping mind. There's a phrase sometimes used by sleep researchers to describe this peculiar combination, a state where the mind is racing while the body lies utterly motionless. Some have called it paradoxical sleep, and it's easy to understand why. By every measure we typically associate with deep rest, slowed activity, quiet stillness, gentle physiological ease, REM sleep should look like the lightest, least restful stage of the entire night. And yet it occupies a substantial, essential portion of every healthy sleep cycle, suggesting that whatever is happening during these strange, paradoxical minutes matters every bit as much as the deep, restorative quiet that came before it. The body, fully still. The mind, fully alive. Eyes moving with quiet purpose behind closed lids, tracing the edges of a world that exists nowhere except within the sleeping brain itself. And it is precisely within this paradoxical stillness, this strange and active territory we've just stepped into, that the most vivid dreams of the entire night will soon begin to take shape. Dreams we'll explore much more closely as this journey continues onward, deeper still into the remarkable, hidden landscape of the sleeping mind. That protective stillness we just explored, the muscle paralysis that keeps the body safe while the mind races through vivid dream territory, has a more precise scientific name worth knowing. REM atonia prevents acting out dreams. Atonia simply means a loss of muscle tone, and this particular form of it is triggered directly by the brainstem, which sends out inhibitory signals specifically during REM sleep, effectively blocking the nerve pathways that would otherwise carry movement commands from the brain out to the muscles. It's a remarkably precise system, essentially a built-in circuit breaker, switching off voluntary movement for the exact duration of each REM period, then switching back on again the moment REM ends and the body shifts back into another stage of sleep. This system, when it works correctly, operates so reliably that most people experience it every single night, for their entire lives, without ever once acting out a dream physically. And when this system occasionally malfunctions, in a rare condition known as REM sleep behavior disorder, the results illustrate exactly how important this protective mechanism really is, with affected individuals sometimes moving, speaking, or even acting out physical dream content in ways that can be startling, and occasionally even dangerous, both to themselves and to anyone sleeping nearby. The existence of this disorder, rare as it is, only reinforces just how essential REM autonomy normally proves to be, quietly protecting nearly everyone, nearly every night, without their ever needing to think about it at all. There's another physiological response tied closely to REM sleep, one that occurs as a simple, automatic consequence of the body's internal activity during this stage, rather than anything connected to dream content itself. Penile erections occur during REM sleep. This phenomenon, sometimes referred to in sleep research as nocturnal penile tumescence, happens in male sleepers across nearly every REM period throughout the night, regardless of the emotional or narrative content of whatever dream might be unfolding at the time. Researchers believe it relates to the broader physiological activation occurring during REM, the increased blood flow, the heightened nervous system activity we discussed earlier, manifesting in this particular, automatic way. It's simply one more piece of evidence pointing toward just how physiologically active REM sleep really is, the body responding to internal signals in ways that operate completely independently of conscious thought or dream narrative. With this clearer picture now in place, of a body held still by careful paralysis, a mind racing with activity nearly identical to wakefulness, let's turn our attention to what might be the most fascinating destination in this entire journey, the dreams themselves. For a long time, dreaming was assumed to belong almost exclusively to REM sleep, tied so closely to that single stage that the two were nearly treated as synonymous. But more careful, more modern research has revealed something a bit more nuanced. Dreams can occur during any sleep stage. While REM sleep remains strongly associated with the most vivid, narrative-rich dreaming, researchers have found that mental activity resembling dreams, sometimes simpler, more thought-like, less visually elaborate, can occur during non-REM stages as well, including the lighter territories of stage 1 and stage 2. And occasionally even within the deeper reaches of slow-wave sleep. This challenges the old, tidy assumption that dreaming and REM sleep were one and the same. Instead, it appears that some form of mental activity, some flicker of internal experience, may be present across a much wider portion of the night than was once believed. This leads to a particularly striking possibility, one that reshapes how we think about an entire night's sleep. We may dream nearly the entire night. If dream-like mental activity extends across multiple stages, rather than being confined narrowly to REM alone, then the experience of dreaming, in some form, may be far more continuous throughout the night than most people realize. It simply doesn't always register as dreaming in the way we typically imagine it: vivid scenes, clear characters, memorable storylines. Much of it may pass by as something quieter, vaguer, and far less memorable, leaving behind little or no trace by the time morning arrives. And this brings us to an important distinction worth making clearly. REM dreams are usually the most vivid. While dreamlike activity may occur more broadly across the night, the dreams generated specifically during REM sleep tend to stand apart from anything happening during other stages. These are the dreams with rich visual detail, complex narratives, vivid emotional intensity, the kind of dreams people actually remember and describe upon waking, the kind that can feel almost indistinguishable from real experience while they're happening. Non-REM mental activity, by contrast, tends to be vaguer, more fragmentary, often closer to simple thoughts or images than to the fully immersive experiences associated with REM. So where, exactly, does all of this vivid imagery actually come from? What part of the brain is responsible for constructing an entire visual world, complete with movement, color, and depth, while the eyes themselves remain closed and the room around the sleeper stays completely dark? The visual cortex creates dream imagery. Located at the back of the brain, the visual cortex is the same region responsible for processing everything you see while awake, light entering through your eyes, translated into the rich, detailed visual experience of the world around you. During REM sleep, this same region becomes highly active, generating vivid visual imagery from within, entirely independent of any actual light or visual input reaching the eyes at all. It's almost as though the visual cortex, having spent the entire day processing an enormous stream of external visual information, switches into an entirely different mode at night, generating its own imagery instead, constructing scenes, faces, and landscapes purely from internal activity. This raises a particularly fascinating question, one that researchers have actually been able to study directly. Some blind people experience visual dreams. For individuals who lost their sight later in life, after having spent years or even decades able to see, visual dreaming often continues, sometimes for years afterward, drawing on the rich visual memory and imagery accumulated during their earlier sighted years. The visual cortex, it seems, retains the capacity to generate this kind of imagery even after actual sight has been lost, suggesting that visual dreaming relies as much on stored memory and internal processing as it does on the eyes themselves. For those born blind from birth, however, research suggests something different. Without ever having had visual experience to draw from in the first place, their dreams tend to be constructed instead from other senses entirely: touch, sound, smell, spatial awareness, weaving together an equally rich, equally vivid dream experience, just built from an entirely different sensory foundation than the one most sighted people rely on. And even among sighted dreamers, dream imagery itself isn't uniform. There's an interesting variation worth noting here. Around 12% of people dream in black and white. While the vast majority of people experience dreams in full color, a notable minority consistently report dreaming primarily, or even exclusively, in shades of gray. Interestingly, some researchers have suggested a connection to early television viewing, with people who grew up watching predominantly black and white television, before color broadcasts became widespread, showing a somewhat higher likelihood of black and white dreaming later in life, hinting that dream imagery may be shaped, at least in part, by the visual media someone was exposed to during their formative years. And there's another curious limitation built into dream construction, one tied directly to memory itself. You can only dream about faces you've previously seen. This might seem like a small, almost obvious detail, but it carries an interesting implication. Every single face that appears in your dreams, whether instantly recognizable as someone you know, or a stranger whose identity remains frustratingly unclear upon waking, originates from some fragment of visual memory, some face you've encountered at some point in your life, even if you can't consciously recall exactly where or when. Your dreaming brain isn't capable of generating an entirely novel face from nothing. It can only recombine, distort, and reassemble the vast catalog of faces already stored somewhere within your memory, sometimes blending features from multiple people into a single, oddly unfamiliar composite. So even the strangers populating your dreams, the ones whose faces feel like they belong to no one you've ever actually met, are, in some sense, built from fragments of real faces you've genuinely encountered, perhaps a stranger glimpsed briefly on a crowded street years ago, or a face seen only once in a passing photograph, stored away quietly in memory, waiting for your dreaming mind to call upon it. And finally, after all of this vivid, intricate construction, color, faces, movement, entire imagined worlds built from memory and internal activity, there's something almost bittersweet about what typically happens next. Half of a dream may be forgotten within 5 minutes of waking. Dreams, by their very nature, seem to exist in a particularly fragile state of memory. Almost immediately upon waking, the vivid details that felt so real and so clear just moments before begin slipping away, fading at a remarkable speed. Within just 5 minutes of opening your eyes, roughly half the content of a typical dream has already been lost, and within another 10 minutes beyond that, the vast majority of what remains tends to disappear as well, unless something, a particularly strong emotion, a deliberate effort to recall it, or simply writing it down right away, helps anchor it more firmly in memory before it slips away entirely. This rapid forgetting may relate to the very brain chemistry that defines REM sleep itself. Certain neurotransmitters important for forming stable, lasting memories operate at notably lower levels during REM sleep compared to wakefulness, which may help explain why such vivid, often elaborate experiences so often dissolve almost completely within mere minutes of returning to conscious awareness. There's something quietly poignant in that. Every single night, an entire hidden world is constructed somewhere within the sleeping brain, full of vivid color, familiar and unfamiliar faces, entire imagined landscapes drawn from a lifetime of memory and experience. And then, almost as quickly as it appeared, most of it simply dissolves, leaving behind only fragments, impressions, a lingering feeling without quite enough detail to fully reconstruct what was actually seen. It is, in its own way, one of the most fleeting and private forms of art the human mind ever creates, composed entirely from memory, experienced in complete isolation, and then, for the most part, gone again before the day has even properly begun. That fragile fading we just explored, the way dreams dissolve so quickly after waking, actually has a second contributing cause, one we haven't touched on yet. Brief awakenings throughout the night contribute to dream loss. Most people assume their sleep proceeds in one long, unbroken stretch from the moment they close their eyes until the moment they finally open them again in the morning. But in reality, the brain surfaces briefly, again and again, throughout the night, often for just a few seconds at a time, far too brief to register consciously or to leave any lasting memory of having woken at all. These micro-awakenings tend to cluster around the transitions between sleep stages, including the shift out of REM sleep and back into lighter stages of non-REM sleep. And it's precisely at these transition points that dream content seems most vulnerable to being lost. If a dream simply continues uninterrupted into deeper sleep, its content tends to fade away naturally, the way thoughts and impressions usually do once attention moves elsewhere. But these countless small awakenings scattered through the night may interrupt that natural fading process at unpredictable moments, sometimes preserving a fragment of dream content just long enough for it to surface, briefly, into waking memory the next morning, and sometimes erasing it before it ever has the chance. This helps explain something many people have noticed without quite understanding why. The dreams we remember most clearly often aren't necessarily the most vivid or elaborate ones overall. They're simply the ones that happen to align with one of these brief surfacing moments, catching a fragment of memory just before it would otherwise have dissolved completely into the quiet machinery of ongoing sleep. It's a strange thought to sit with. Across a single night, you may surface from sleep dozens of times, brushing right up against the edge of wakefulness, without ever once being aware that it happened. Your conscious mind experiences only a smooth, continuous night of rest. But underneath that smooth experience lies something far more fragmented and complex, an entire hidden topography of micro-awakenings, dream fragments, and quiet transitions, almost none of which you will ever consciously remember. This fragmented, hidden nature of sleep opens the door to something else entirely, a collection of stranger, more unusual phenomena that occur within sleep, quiet oddities that reveal just how much remains genuinely mysterious about this nightly experience we all share. Let's begin with something that happens to nearly everyone, every single night, almost entirely unnoticed. Your sense of smell becomes greatly diminished during sleep. While you're awake, your sense of smell operates as a fairly constant background sense, alerting you to anything from a gentle breeze carrying the scent of rain to something burning on a stovetop several rooms away. But during sleep, this sense becomes dramatically less sensitive. The olfactory system essentially quiets down, processing far less incoming information than it does during ordinary wakefulness. This is part of why smoke detectors exist as such an important safety measure, rather than simply trusting your nose to wake you in an emergency. A sleeping brain, even one that might still respond to a loud, sudden sound, often fails to register even strong odors nearby, smoke included, because the sensory pathway responsible for detecting it has been so significantly turned down for the night. And in a related, oddly specific quirk of sleep physiology, it is nearly impossible to sneeze while sleeping. Sneezing relies on a particular reflex arc, a coordinated chain of nerve signals that detect irritation, typically in the nasal passages, and trigger the sudden, forceful response we recognize as a sneeze. But during sleep, this reflex becomes almost entirely suppressed. Even if something would normally trigger a sneeze during waking hours, dust, pollen, a tickling sensation in the nose, the sleeping brain rarely allows that reflex to actually fire. Researchers believe this suppression likely relates to the same general dampening of sensory processing that affects smell more broadly during sleep, alongside specific neural mechanisms that quiet certain reflexes during particular sleep stages. It's a small, almost amusing detail in the grand scope of sleep science, but it speaks to something larger, an entire orchestra of bodily reflexes and responses, each individually adjusted, dampened, or suspended, all in service of protecting an uninterrupted night of rest. Here's something stranger still, one that challenges a basic assumption most people carry about what sleep actually requires. Some people can sleep with their eyes open. This unusual condition, known medically as nocturnal logophthalmos, occurs when the eyelids don't fully close during sleep, sometimes due to anatomical differences, sometimes related to certain medical conditions, sometimes simply as an individual quirk of how a person's eyelids happen to be structured. For those affected, actual sleep, the full neurological process we've spent this entire journey exploring, proceeds completely normally. The brain still cycles through its stages, the body still rests, the entire architecture of the night still unfolds as expected. The only difference lies in those few millimeters of unclosed eyelid, allowing a sliver of the surrounding room to remain visible the entire time, even while genuine sleep continues underneath. It's a useful reminder that the visible signs we associate with sleep, closed eyes chief among them, aren't actually what defines sleep itself. Sleep is fundamentally a state of the brain, not simply a matter of how the eyelids happen to be positioned. And speaking of sleep slipping in without obvious visible signs, there's a related and genuinely important phenomenon worth understanding clearly. Microsleeps can occur without awareness. A microsleep is exactly what it sounds like, an extremely brief episode of actual sleep, often lasting only a few seconds, that intrudes suddenly into what should otherwise be a period of wakefulness. These episodes most commonly occur when a person is severely sleep-deprived, their brain essentially seizing brief, involuntary moments of rest because sleep pressure is built to an overwhelming degree. What makes microsleeps particularly notable is that the person experiencing them is often completely unaware it happened. Someone might be driving, or sitting in a meeting, or reading, and for a few seconds, their brain genuinely shifts into a sleep state, eyes briefly closing or staring blankly, before snapping back to apparent wakefulness almost immediately afterward, often with no memory of the gap at all. This is precisely why severe sleep deprivation is considered so dangerous in situations requiring sustained attention, particularly driving. A microsleep lasting even just a few seconds, at highway speed, covers a significant distance, traveled with essentially no conscious awareness or control whatsoever. It's a sobering illustration of just how forcefully the body's need for sleep can assert itself, completely overriding intention and effort the moment sleep deprivation reaches a critical threshold. We touched briefly, much earlier in this journey, on sleep paralysis, that unsettling experience of waking with full conscious awareness while the body remains temporarily locked in REM-related stillness. There's an additional layer to that experience worth understanding more fully. Sleep paralysis may involve vivid hallucinations. Beyond the physical inability to move, many people who experience sleep paralysis also report vivid, often unsettling sensory experiences during these episodes, a sense of a presence in the room, pressure on the chest, shadowy figures glimpsed at the edges of vision, even fully formed, dreamlike imagery overlaid onto the real, physical surroundings of the bedroom. These hallucinations are believed to result from the brain remaining partially caught in REM-related activity, generating dreamlike sensory content even while a person feels, by every other measure, genuinely awake. Across history and culture, this particular combination, physical immobility paired with vivid, often frightening hallucinations, has inspired an enormous range of folklore. Descriptions of night demons, witches sitting on a sleeper's chest, and shadowy intruders appear across cultures spanning the entire globe, many of them describing experiences that align remarkably closely with what modern sleep science now recognizes simply as sleep paralysis. It's a striking example of how a genuine biological phenomenon, poorly understood for centuries, gradually became woven into folklore and mythology long before anyone had the scientific tools to explain what was actually happening inside the sleeping, half-waking brain. Given everything we've now explored about sleep paralysis, hallucinations, and the strange vulnerability of those transitional states between wakefulness and rest, it's perhaps unsurprising that for some people, sleep itself becomes a source of genuine fear. Somnophobia is the fear of falling asleep. This specific phobia involves a persistent, often intense anxiety surrounding the act of falling asleep itself, sometimes rooted in frightening past experiences with sleep paralysis or severe nightmares, sometimes connected to anxiety about losing conscious control, and sometimes tied to a fear of dying during sleep. For those affected, the natural nightly transition we've spent so much time describing throughout this entire journey, the gentle slowing of the heart, the quiet descent through the stages, becomes something to be dreaded rather than welcomed, creating a difficult cycle where anxiety about sleep makes falling asleep even harder, which in turn reinforces the underlying fear. It's a reminder that sleep, for all its quiet biological elegance, doesn't always feel peaceful to everyone. For some, this most ordinary of nightly experiences becomes genuinely difficult to face, and addressing it often requires real therapeutic support rather than simple reassurance alone. These strange and unusual phenomena reveal a lot about the fragile, intricate nature of sleep itself. But they also lead us naturally toward a more serious, more consequential question. What happens when sleep doesn't simply behave strangely from time to time, but goes wrong consistently, night after night, over months and years? Sleep deprivation increases stroke risk. Across a substantial body of research, chronic insufficient sleep has been consistently linked to a measurably higher risk of stroke. Several of the mechanisms we explored earlier in this journey help explain why. Elevated blood pressure, since the body loses much of that protective nighttime dip we discussed when sleep is consistently insufficient. Increased inflammation, which we know contributes to damage within blood vessels over time. And disrupted glucose metabolism, affecting the broader cardiovascular system in ways that compound gradually across months and years of inadequate rest. Researchers have found this risk applies not only to people who sleep too little, but also, somewhat surprisingly, to those who consistently sleep significantly more than average as well, suggesting that maintaining a healthy, consistent, moderate amount of sleep matters more than simply maximizing total hours. And the long-term health implications of poor sleep extend even further. Sleep problems are associated with higher cancer risk. Several large-scale studies have identified connections between chronic sleep disruption, including conditions like sleep apnea and long-term sleep deprivation, and an elevated risk of developing certain types of cancer. Researchers point to a few overlapping explanations. Disrupted immune function, since we already know how essential sleep is for proper immune regulation. Chronic inflammation, again playing a contributing role. And disruption to the body's natural circadian rhythms, which appear to influence cellular repair processes and even certain genes involved in regulating how cells divide and grow. It's important to note that this research remains an active and ongoing area of study, with scientists still working to fully untangle exactly how strong these connections are, and through which specific biological pathways they primarily operate. But the consistency of these findings across multiple independent studies has made sleep health an increasingly prominent consideration within cancer prevention research more broadly, alongside more commonly discussed factors like diet, physical activity, and environmental exposure. Given everything we've explored about just how much can go wrong when sleep is consistently insufficient, you might wonder whether everyone is affected equally. And here, intriguingly, the answer turns out to be no. Some people possess genes that improve sleep loss tolerance. Researchers have identified specific genetic variations that appear to help certain individuals function relatively well even after periods of reduced sleep, showing less cognitive impairment and fewer negative health effects compared to the general population facing similarly insufficient rest. These genetic differences are thought to be quite rare, affecting only a small percentage of people, but their existence offers a fascinating window into just how much individual biological variation exists within something as universal as the need for sleep. It's worth being cautious here, though. The existence of a small number of genetically resilient individuals doesn't change the underlying reality for the vast majority of people, who remain just as vulnerable as ever to the accumulating risks of insufficient rest, the elevated stroke risk, the cancer associations, the weakened immune defenses and metabolic disruption we've traced throughout this entire journey. These rare genetic variants are the exception precisely because they're so uncommon, not a sign that sleep itself has become any less essential for everyone else. So as we step back and consider everything covered in this particular stretch of our exploration, the quiet vanishing of dreams through countless unnoticed awakenings, the strange quirks of a sleeping body, suppressed smell, suspended sneezes, eyes that occasionally remain open through it all, sudden microsleeps slipping in unnoticed, and the more serious, sobering reality of what chronic sleep loss can mean for long-term health, a clear pattern continues to emerge. Sleep is not simply a pause, a gap between one day and the next. It is an intricate, active, deeply consequential process, one whose disruption ripples outward in ways far more serious, and far more wide-reaching, than most people ever stop to consider. And yet, for nearly everyone, every single night offers another opportunity, another chance to let this remarkable, ancient process unfold exactly as it's meant to, quietly repairing, quietly protecting, quietly carrying each of us safely through the dark and into another morning. There's a quiet variation running underneath nearly everything we've explored so far in this journey through sleep, one that doesn't show up in the broad architecture of stages and cycles, but rather in how that architecture plays out differently from person to person. And one of the more consistent differences researchers have identified relates simply to biological sex. Women may need slightly more sleep than men. Several studies, drawing on both subjective reports and objective brain measurements, suggest that women, on average, require somewhat more sleep than men, sometimes by as much as 20 minutes or more per night. The reasons behind this difference aren't entirely settled, but a few explanations have emerged with reasonable consistency across the research. Some scientists point to the additional cognitive demands many women carry throughout a typical day, often described in research literature as a tendency toward more complex multitasking, which may, in turn, create a slightly greater need for the kind of restorative deep sleep we explored earlier in this journey. Others point to hormonal fluctuations, tied to the menstrual cycle, to pregnancy, and later to menopause, each of which can shift sleep architecture in ways that differ meaningfully from the more hormonally stable patterns typically seen in men. And this leads directly into a related, somewhat more concerning pattern. Sleep deprivation may affect women more severely. Beyond simply needing slightly more sleep on average, research suggests that when sleep is insufficient, women may experience more pronounced negative effects than men facing the same degree of sleep loss. Some studies have found sharper increases in inflammation, more significant disruptions to mood and emotional regulation, and a higher likelihood of associated health complications, including cardiovascular concerns, among women experiencing chronic sleep deprivation compared to men. Researchers believe hormonal differences likely play a meaningful role here as well, particularly the complex relationship between sleep and hormones like estrogen and progesterone, both of which fluctuate throughout the menstrual cycle and shift dramatically across major life stages such as pregnancy and menopause. During these transitional periods, many women report increased difficulty sleeping, alongside heightened sensitivity to the effects of whatever sleep loss does occur. It's a clear reminder that something as seemingly universal as the biological need for sleep still expresses itself somewhat differently across different bodies, shaped by hormonal rhythms unique to each individual. These kinds of variations remind us that sleep isn't a single, uniform experience, identical for every person on the planet. And this becomes even more apparent when we look toward the rarer, more extreme edges of what can happen when sleep itself becomes disrupted at the deepest possible level. Fatal familial insomnia can ultimately prevent sleep completely. This is an extraordinarily rare genetic condition, one that offers a sobering, almost haunting window into just how essential sleep truly is for sustaining life itself. Caused by a mutation affecting certain proteins within the brain, the condition leads to progressive, irreversible damage within the thalamus, a deep brain structure heavily involved in regulating the sleep-wake cycle we've spent so much of this journey exploring. As the condition progresses, affected individuals experience increasingly severe insomnia, eventually losing the ability to enter meaningful sleep at all. What follows is a slow, devastating decline. Without the deep, restorative processes we've described throughout this entire exploration, the tissue repair, the hormonal regulation, the immune support, the careful nightly cleansing of the brain itself, the body and mind begin to deteriorate in ways that prove, ultimately, fatal. It's important to understand just how rare this condition truly is, affecting only a small number of families worldwide, identified through specific inherited genetic mutations passed down across generations. But its existence carries an important, almost philosophical weight within sleep science. It demonstrates, in the clearest and most tragic way possible, that sleep isn't simply a pleasant biological convenience, something the body could theoretically learn to do without given enough adaptation or willpower. It is fundamentally, unconditionally necessary for human survival. Take it away completely, permanently, and the body cannot continue. This brings us, with a bit more hope and far less severity, to to a related question many people find themselves curious about. If losing the ability to sleep entirely proves fatal, just how long can a healthy person voluntarily go without sleep, simply through sheer determination and resistance? The longest recorded period without sleep exceeded 18 days. This remarkable, well-documented case stands as one of the most extreme demonstrations of voluntary sleep deprivation ever studied, a person remaining awake, under observation, for more than 18 consecutive days, well beyond what most people would ever consider survivable through willpower alone. The effects observed during that extended period were significant and progressively severe. Cognitive function declined dramatically. Hallucinations began to occur, the mind, deprived of its essential nightly processing, beginning to generate strange, vivid distortions even while the person remained, by every formal measure, fully conscious and awake. Memory, concentration, and basic reasoning all deteriorated substantially as the days progressed, offering a vivid, real-world illustration of nearly every consequence we've discussed throughout this entire journey: the cognitive fog, the emotional instability, the breakdown of nearly every system sleep normally protects and restores. It's worth noting that this kind of record is no longer actively pursued or recognized in the way it once was, precisely because of how genuinely dangerous extended sleep deprivation proves to be. The case remains, instead, a historical curiosity, and a powerful scientific reminder of sleep's deep, non-negotiable necessity, rather than something to be admired or repeated. Most people, of course, will never come anywhere close to that kind of extreme. But there's a far more ordinary, far more universal experience of significant sleep loss that touches an enormous portion of the human population at some point in their lives. New parents lose substantial sleep during a child's first years. This particular kind of sleep deprivation looks quite different from the dramatic, extreme cases we've just described. It isn't a single continuous stretch of wakefulness, but rather a prolonged period of fragmented, interrupted sleep, stretched out across months, sometimes years, as a newborn's unpredictable needs repeatedly pull parents away from the deep, structured architecture of sleep we've spent so much time exploring throughout this entire journey. Research suggests that new parents, particularly during a child's first year, often lose a significant cumulative amount of sleep, frequently waking multiple times throughout the night, rarely completing full, uninterrupted sleep cycles, and accumulating what amounts to a substantial long-term sleep debt by the time their child finally begins sleeping through the night consistently. Some studies estimate this cumulative loss can stretch into hundreds of hours of missed sleep across that first demanding year alone. There's something quietly universal in this particular kind of exhaustion, one that connects an enormous number of people across cultures, generations, and circumstances. It represents, in its own way, a profound act of biological sacrifice, parents repeatedly setting aside their own deep, restorative rest in order to meet the needs of someone who cannot yet meet their own. And it offers a particularly human counterpoint to the more extreme, unusual cases we just explored, not a record-breaking feat, nor a rare genetic tragedy, but a remarkably common, deeply relatable kind of sleep disruption that so many people quietly endure, simply as part of caring for a new life. Having spent so much of this journey exploring the particulars of human sleep, it's worth, for a moment, widening our view beyond our own species entirely. Because while sleep itself appears to be a near-universal feature of complex animal life, the way different creatures actually accomplish it varies in ways that can seem almost impossibly strange. Dolphins sleep with one hemisphere of the brain at a time. This is one of the more genuinely astonishing adaptations found anywhere in the animal kingdom. Unlike humans, whose entire brain settles into sleep more or less together, dolphins have evolved a completely different solution to a very particular problem. As mammals living entirely within water, dolphins must continue breathing consciously, surfacing deliberately to draw breath, rather than breathing automatically the way humans do even while fully unconscious. A dolphin that fell into the same kind of complete, whole-brain sleep humans experience would simply stop surfacing for air, with fatal consequences. Evolution's solution to this problem is remarkable in its elegance. Each side of a dolphin's brain takes turns sleeping. Rather than both hemispheres losing consciousness simultaneously, dolphins sleep with only one half of their brain at a time, while the other half remains alert enough to manage essential functions, including, crucially, the conscious effort of swimming to the surface to breathe. You can often recognize this state visually as well. A sleeping dolphin will frequently keep one eye closed, the eye connected to the resting hemisphere, while the opposite eye remains open, connected to the half of the brain still actively monitoring the surrounding environment. After some period of time, the pattern reverses, the resting hemisphere waking while the previously active half settles into its own turn of rest. Across a full day, this alternating pattern allows a dolphin to accumulate the sleep it needs for restoration, without ever losing the constant vigilance required to survive in an environment where forgetting to breathe, even briefly, would prove fatal. It's a striking reminder of just how creatively biology can solve a seemingly impossible problem: rest and survival, two competing needs, reconciled not by sacrificing one for the other, but by dividing the brain itself, allowing half to rest while the other half quietly keeps watch. And this naturally brings us back, with fresh appreciation, to something we touched on at the very beginning of this entire journey, a trait that sets our own species apart from virtually every other creature we might compare ourselves to. Humans are unusual because we can resist sleep voluntarily. Where dolphins evolved an entirely separate biological mechanism just to continue functioning while still obtaining necessary rest, humans take an entirely different approach. We don't divide our brain, or develop some clever workaround to bypass our biological need for sleep. We simply choose, again and again, to override it directly, pushing back against one of the most ancient, deeply rooted instincts shared across nearly the entire animal kingdom. It's worth sitting with that contrast for a moment. A dolphin's relationship with sleep reflects millions of years of evolutionary problem-solving, an elegant biological compromise allowing survival and rest to coexist. A human's relationship with sleep, by comparison, often looks more like quiet defiance, staying up later than the body wants, overriding rising sleep pressure through sheer willpower, treating a fundamental biological need as something optional, negotiable, postponable until some more convenient moment that, more often than not, never quite arrives. Across the animal kingdom, sleep simply happens, largely unquestioned, governed entirely by biology rather than choice. Humans remain a curious, perhaps uniquely complicated exception, capable of understanding, in remarkable scientific detail, exactly how essential sleep is, and yet still finding ourselves, more nights than not, choosing to delay it anyway. With that wider context now in place, both the strange elegance of dolphin sleep and our own complicated, often resistant relationship with rest, let's turn towards something a bit more practical. Beyond the fascinating biology we've spent so much time exploring, there are also concrete, everyday factors that genuinely shape how well a person sleeps, factors worth understanding clearly as we approach the end of this particular journey. Light exposure can disturb sleep even without fully waking you. This is a subtler effect than most people realize. You don't necessarily need to be jolted fully awake by a bright light for your sleep to be meaningfully affected by it. Even brief, relatively dim light exposure during the night can interfere with the deeper architecture of sleep we've spent so much time mapping throughout this journey, suppressing melatonin production, lightening the depth of ongoing sleep stages, and reducing the overall quality of rest, even if the sleeper never consciously registers having woken up at all. This happens because certain light-sensitive cells within the eye remain responsive to light even during sleep, sending signals to the brain's internal clock regardless of whether the rest of the brain is consciously aware of what's happening. A street light filtering through a curtain, a phone screen briefly lighting up on a nightstand, even certain types of indoor lighting left on in another room, can each subtly disrupt the deep, uninterrupted darkness that supports the healthiest, most restorative sleep. And this principle extends to something many people overlook entirely, a small object sitting quietly beside nearly every bed in the modern world. Even alarm clock light can affect sleep quality. The soft glow from a digital alarm clock, often considered too dim and too ordinary to matter, can still contribute to this same kind of subtle sleep disruption, particularly for especially light-sensitive sleepers, or when that glow happens to fall directly across the face throughout the night. Many sleep researchers now recommend dimming or covering these small persistent light sources, or choosing alarm displays specifically designed to minimize unnecessary brightness, as a simple, often overlooked way to protect the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep we've spent this entire journey exploring. Beyond light, the physical environment surrounding sleep matters in other ways as well, including something as seemingly simple as what you're actually lying on each night. Mattress firmness influences sleep comfort. Different individuals respond differently to varying levels of mattress firmness, shaped by factors including body weight, typical sleeping position, and individual preferences around spinal alignment and pressure relief. Research suggests that a mattress providing adequate support, neither so firm that it creates uncomfortable pressure points, nor so soft that it fails to properly support the spine, tends to correlate with better overall sleep quality and reduced nighttime discomfort. There's no single, universally perfect level of firmness that works for everyone. But the broader principle remains consistent. A sleep surface mismatch to an individual's particular needs can quietly undermine sleep quality, even when every other factor we've discussed throughout this journey happens to be perfectly aligned. And interestingly, what happens earlier in the day, particularly what you eat, can shape sleep quality just as meaningfully as anything happening in the bedroom itself. Fiber intake may improve deep sleep. Several studies have found a measurable association between higher dietary fiber intake and an increased proportion of slow-wave, deep sleep, the very stage we spent so much time exploring earlier in this journey, responsible for tissue repair, immune support, and so much of the body's essential nightly restoration. Researchers believe this connection may relate to fiber's broader effects on metabolism, blood sugar regulation, and gut health, all of which appear to interact with the body's sleep architecture in ways scientists are still working to fully understand. And on the opposite end of that same dietary relationship, saturated fat may reduce deep sleep. Diets higher in saturated fat have been associated, in multiple studies, with a reduced proportion of slow-wave sleep, suggesting that the foods consumed throughout an ordinary day may carry consequences extending well beyond simple digestion or weight management, reaching all the way into the deep, restorative architecture of that night's sleep. It's a striking illustration of just how interconnected the body's systems really are. The contents of an evening meal, something most people consider entirely separate from the question of how well they'll sleep that night, may actually be quietly shaping the depth and quality of rest still to come. So here we are, having traveled an enormous distance throughout this entire journey, from the very first uncertain moments of drifting off, through the deep, restorative stillness of slow-wave sleep, into the strange, paradoxical activity of REM and the vivid, fleeting world of dreams, and finally outward into the broader context of individual differences, animal adaptations, and the everyday practical factors that quietly shape every single night. And as we bring this exploration to its close, it's worth stepping back to fully appreciate just how much is genuinely at stake within this ordinary, often underappreciated part of life. Good sleep supports the heart, brain, immune system, emotions, learning, and longevity. Every single thread we've followed throughout this entire journey ultimately connects back to this same fundamental truth. The heart, protected through that gentle nighttime dip in blood pressure, and through the steady, vagal calm of deep non-REM sleep. The brain, cleansed through the remarkable workings of the glymphatic system, its memories consolidated, its synaptic connections carefully reorganized. The immune system, strengthened and recalibrated through cytokine release and coordinated nightly repair. Emotions, processed and gently smoothed through the quiet work of REM sleep and reduced amygdala reactivity. Learning, supported through memory consolidation and the clearing away of unnecessary mental clutter. And longevity itself, shaped gradually, across years and decades, by the cumulative presence, or absence, of all of this essential nightly work. There is truly no major system within the human body that sleep does not touch in some meaningful way. It is not one isolated function among many. It is something closer to a foundation, a nightly process upon which so much of our physical and mental well-being quietly depends, whether we ever stop to fully appreciate it or not. And so we return, finally, to where this entire journey effectively began, to that quiet, mysterious moment each night when consciousness simply lets go. Every night, while consciousness fades, your brain quietly repairs, cleans, organizes, protects, and prepares you for another day. This single sentence holds, in many ways, the entire story we've spent this whole journey unfolding. The repair of tissue, muscle, and DNA, carried out faithfully through the deep, restorative stillness of slow-wave sleep. The cleaning, performed by the glymphatic system, washing away the literal residue of a day's worth of thought and experience. The organizing, achieved through careful synaptic pruning and memory consolidation, sorting what matters from what doesn't, strengthening what deserves to last. The protecting, carried out by a strengthened immune system, steadier blood pressure, reduced inflammation, and a nervous system gently shifted toward rest and recovery. And finally, the preparing, readying both body and mind to step back into another day, restored in ways too vast and intricate to ever fully consciously appreciate. All of this happens quietly, faithfully, automatically, without your permission, without your conscious direction, without ever asking anything of you except the simple willingness to close your eyes and allow it to begin. Somewhere, right now, countless people across this turning planet are moving through some part of this very process. Hearts slowing, temperatures falling, brain waves shifting through their careful, patterned sequence, dreams quietly forming, and just as quietly dissolving. An entire hidden world of repair and restoration, unfolding in darkness, night after night, for every single person fortunate enough to experience it. And tonight, as you close your own eyes, that same remarkable process will begin again. The same descent, the same quiet repair, the same ancient, faithful rhythm that has carried humanity safely through every night since long before any of us had the words, or the science, to understand what was actually happening. You don't need to do anything more than simply let it happen. Rest now, and let the night do what it has always known, quietly and perfectly, how to do.